All right, welcome to Intro to Geek Media. I'm your host, Stan Rizai. A little bit about myself. I am the founder and editor of 8-Bit Digi, a local video game news site that mostly focuses on anything gamer related in the Bay Area. Started in 2015, mostly as a blog just for me to write reviews for games, but then it just evolved into something more local based, especially since there's tons of video game review sites, so I'm gonna do something that's to stand out. And one niche I had was I would just go to gaming events here in the Bay Area, and that became my niche. And besides that, this is of course a side gig. My day job is doing market and research for Marcus and Millichap out of their Palo Alto office, which I got the job because of my background in communications and marketing, thanks to 8-Bit Digi. Okay. And, yep, move along. So since you're a communications major, just gonna assume it's safe to say you have a good understanding about journalism history, correct? All right, so let's just skip all that boring history part then. Well, let's skip the early history, and let's just get to how Geek Media even started. So pretty much it started more as a what's the word I'm looking for? All right, so a lot of us would say that the first geek news outlet was famous Monsters of Filmland, started in 1958 by Forrest J. Ackerman and was discontinued in 2020. They had their office up in Santa Rosa, mostly focused on horror films. And from there, other media outlets began to follow suit, mostly dedicated to niche audiences or a trade, from early computer magazines to hobby magazines. Then when it came to games itself, you first had Playmeter in 1972, then you had Fangoria in 1973, then 1988 Electronic Game Monthly was established by the U.S. National Video Game Team. GamePro followed suit in 1989, and so on. Of course, with digital journalism itself began to start way back in actually 1970 with the rise of teletext. Are you familiar with teletext? All right, so this was the early version of the internet, but it was mostly delivered through television. It was very big in Europe, and actually there was this awesome teletext game that was on display at GDC 2022 back in March, which everyone was talking about, especially they grew up in Europe with the teletext itself. It was an early version of the internet, and when it just was shut down in, I want to say 2012, there was a huge uproar because people found it more reliable than a Google search. All right. Then, of course, you also had all sorts of online media outlets that just also emerged in the late 90s, early 2000s. Today, geek journalism could be best defined in you have bloggers who mostly share their thoughts and experiences on a variety of topics or topics that they specialize in. You got small independent publications such as 8-Bit Digi. And then you also have YouTube, which has been a platform for all sorts of content creators, commentators, and independent critics. And those who don't like to be in front of a camera have turned to podcasting as an alternative, which has also been a very successful platform for many. All right, now time to get started on starting your own geek outlet. So when we define geek journalism, you'll have two sides to it. You got one that is going to be focused on the fans and one focused on the industry. So fans, what I mean by fans is you're looking at it from a consumer point of view. This means looking at consumer trends, talking to consumers, seeing what they like as a whole. Whereas the industry side, you're more are going to be focused on the behind the scenes. For me as a game journalist, it's going to be mostly talking to a lot of developers, be it from major AAA studios. Hi, come on in. I'm good. Okay, so you're looking at talking to a lot of developers. You're also going to be looking at the business side of things. Great to get access. Great to learn what the industry is. One thing I don't like about it from the industry side is right now you're going to get bombarded by a lot of NFT and Bitcoin peddlers. I've actually had to set my email account to just anything that has the words NFT, crypto, throw it straight to spam. One more great thing about also looking at the industry is you get to see a lot of the latest technologies that are emerging, especially at GDC, where a lot of like software companies are going to try to showcase the latest software to ease the game development process, which is always big at GDC. All right. Like a lot of, so far the big thing has been making QA a lot easier and streamlined. I think there was this one company called Game Forger. They were trying to use AI technology to do to streamline the QA process. There's another company I was thinking called Game. I forgot the name of it, but they were more about trying to make it easy to collect data on bugs in a QA process. So GDC 2020 or 2022, besides, I know a lot of people were saying, oh, it was just polluted by NFTs. QA was also the main big tech talk going on. Okay, time to know your strength and your limitations. You'll realize going in, I'm sure you're going to have a lot of big ideas of what you want to do, but it's time to come back to reality. Your resources are going to be limited. Your skill set are probably going to be limited, and your connections are also going to be limited. So you're going to work on what you have so far and try to use that as the foundation to build upon. Of course, it's easier said than done, but there's going to be a lot of trial and error. You're going to fumble a lot, but once you succeed or you meet a milestone, it's going to feel great. Okay, some things to learn. These are things I would recommend reading on. You could even take a class on it. You don't have to go to a 4-year university. Almost all of this can be taught at a community college. The first one is, of course, is basic business and marketing. I say this because you got to treat this as a business first and a passion second. However, don't lose that passion or you're going to hate what you do. And marketing, of course, is very important. And I'll explain that later. Multimedia skills. Now, I'm mostly a writer, but I've had to learn a lot about photo shooting and photo editing. And I'm at that point where I see other people's work, and I'm like, oh, I like what that guy does, or, that guy needs a better camera. So but of course, you could always learn about video editing, podcasting, audio editing. Now, multimedia skills, you could, of course, learn online through YouTube channels or talk to someone who could teach you one-on-one. Schools themselves, they might sometimes be a little behind on the technology or what's needed in the marketplace. And of course, there's basic journalism. Journalism, of course, is not limited to writing a story. There's a lot. Most of the time you're spent on researching. You also got to learn about media laws and ethics, fact checking, how different writing styles. I mean, the basis of all journalism writing is the AP style, and then from there you could grow and develop your own style, either based on the New York Times style or the Chicago Tribune style. Finally, there is what do you want to be? You have the choice of being, hello there. Welcome to Intro to Geek Media. I just have to take a seat and a quick question though. Are you here to learn, or are you a journalist just trying to meet other journalists?
Yes and yes.
Awesome.
My degree's in journalism, but I'm behind the curve.
Okay, no problem. Where are you studying journalism at, or where did you get your journalism degree?
I got my degree at San Jose State in 2002.
Oh, wow. Wow. Oh, awesome.
You need me on the microphone? Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I can hear you perfectly fine. And are you working with a newspaper, media out?
I'm freelance.
Okay. And are you based here in the Bay Area?
I am, yes.
Awesome. I gotta get your contact after.
Okay.
All right. So right now, since you stepped in, I was about to talk about what you want to be with your media outlets. So now first you got journalists. You got of course, the freelance gig, but then there's also there's also the major brands, and then of course there's the independent ones. You can either make that yourself, or join another one. And what I like about being referred to as a journalist is, despite all the anti-media jerks you hear on Twitter, usually first name, last name, number, no profile picture, it has a lot more credibility. People are more willing to talk to a journalist. Then you have commentators. They're more opinionated, but they have a level of expertise to back it up. Mostly because they have a vested knowledge, they have either the experience or they're well read in the arts, so they have a good understanding. The next is, well, I wouldn't recommend going for it, but it's influencers. A lot of people I've talked to personally do not like the title of influencer, because a lot of times when you hear the word influencer, you just think over someone wanting free stuff. They want free stuff in exchange for maybe 2 photos with a hashtag. Nobody really likes an influencer that much. Yeah, go ahead.
Is there a distinction between an influencer and a shill?
Not really.
Okay.
Now, if you don't think journalist or commentator applies to you, there's also the title. There's of course a content creator. Hey there, welcome. So content creators this is something I encountered just recently at Crunchyroll Expo. I met a couple of media personalities or people with media badges. They didn't exactly see themselves as journalists or commentators. They absolutely didn't like the title influencer. So after some talking, I said, why not content creators? You guys just make fun content. It's not exactly commenting. It's not journalism, but you're definitely not influencers. Okay, now we're going to come on to building your outlet. So when it comes to building your outlet, first you want to find a platform that best caters to you. If you want to make a news site, you have the choice between Squarespace or WordPress. I'm personally more of a WordPress guy. I have WordPress.com because it's easy to customize, since I have some basic HTML and CSS skills, but there are templates you could use to build off that. And I use the .com version since I don't want to deal with the backend stuff. Now, Squarespace is also a great alternative. The problem is, though, if you're not happy, you have 14 days to decide whether you want to go with them or not, and sometimes that's not enough time to build something. Wix, I've heard some people suggest Wix. I don't suggest it, since Wix is good if you have a small business and don't need that many pages. Not something not a luxury, not something you can do with a news site. Now, if you're not planning to start a news site, you could always look and want to start with videos. There's of course YouTube. But YouTube is one of the most popular platforms for videos. But there are alternatives such as Facebook, and some people even like to use Twitch as an alternative. Of course, you gotta also make sure you have budget everything properly. Trust me, you're gonna need that budget when you want to start growing. And of course, take advantage of social media. Don't expect to go viral magically or hope people find you. Social media is a great tool to promote yourself and to set up your brand or get your brand out there. Okay, so here's the big debate some people have. video versus writing. I'm more of a writer and photographer, so I prefer to do that. And I find video, to me personally, I think video has a higher bar of entry because you got the video editing softwares and then you got the cameras. Now, compared to what it was 5 or 10 years ago, it's gotten a lot easier to get into videos, but it's still a high barrier compared to writing. Whereas people who do video find writing to be a little bit more difficult since all the time they got to put down into putting your words together. Some people just prefer to share, to speak their mind and stuff, organizing their thoughts into writing. Content. Okay, your content is going to be very important, of course. Now, obviously, be original, but that's easier said than done. Have passion, and don't hate what you do. There's a lot of, personally myself, I really find critics who have that been there, done that mindset to be annoying. If you don't, yes, I get it. You've probably done this for a long time. Maybe stop. Maybe do something. Try to review something else. Stop reviewing Call of Duty every year and expect something new. You also want to find a niche because there's a lot of people out there with blogs, YouTube channels. So you want to do something that stands out. You don't want to be too general, because nothing really special about it. You want to tap into a readership that feels underrepresented or doesn't have a voice, or something that there's not much that is not really that well represented in the media, and that's something you want to share with everyone. You also want to be open and try to experiment. For example, myself, when I started, I was your typical gamer, only interested in AAA Call of Duty shooters. I'm still into shooters, but I've rekindled my love for old school shooters, and I'm really enjoy playing indie titles and JRPGs a lot, especially at GDC. I just love going through the indie halls, the alt controls, finding all sorts of interesting games that you don't normally get to see. My favorite one, for example, from the 2022 event was this game where you participated in a World War I battle, but you command ships using Morse code. It's pretty cool. The controls had this old Morse code box. You just tap on it like it's Morse code, but you gotta time it right so to give the proper command for the ships to fire at the enemy. Pretty cool game. And you're gonna get into your own Geek game news site. You're gonna have to play a lot of indie games to get started, which is awesome because it exposes you to a different side of games you really don't get to see. And I know they have, I think, an indie game hall here, so be sure to give that a try or go check that out. All right, establishing your credibility. First of all, do not rely on the free stuff too much. It really holds you back. What I mean is, don't just have a Gmail account with your company name on it. Actually invest in that Google Business Suite, and it does come in handy. Twice this year, someone has pretended to be me to get free games. However, they've been caught because a lot of every PR guy I work with knows that I have a custom Gmail account, one that has my that is my name at 8bitdigi.com. So they know it's a fake. But also, it really helps to establish your credibility as a new person, since a lot of these PR guys will get bombarded by people with a Gmail account or a Hotmail account trying to get free games. Either they're scammers or they just have a small blog with probably five readers a month. So domain name, absolutely get that domain name. You're gonna need it. Also, that's special. And of course, I said earlier, you want to really build up your social media presence. but you also want to do a lot of personal networking, especially now since things are starting to open up, so there's a lot of in-person events going on. And this event right here, MAGWest, is a great networking event. If you want to get into games journalism, talk to some of the indie game devs, developers, talk to some of the people in the merchant hall, in the dealer's hall, talk to some of the guests, the performers, if you want to be a music video game journalist. All right, now we want to talk about building your brand. So it's very important to have that personal brand. It sets you what sets you apart from everyone else, and also defines what your website or your channel is going to be all about. So when you're starting, you want to be as open-minded as possible. Interview as many people as you can. Try to be a person of the people, as I like to say. Explore things that not many people are going to talk about in the major publications or the major YouTube channels. You might find something you're going to like. Always happens. At the same time, you want to be networking as much as possible. You want to, these events right here, perfect networking opportunities. You also get to meet a lot of pretty cool people. And when you go to industry conferences, you're going to network with a lot of PR people, which is a great place. And sometimes even at fan conventions, well, the major ones, that's a great opportunity to connect with PR representatives. I mean, for me at Anime Expo, that was a gold mine. I got into Atlas's mailing list. I got onto a couple of other indie game publishers lists. What was it? Oh yeah, and Anime. Actually, every time I've gone to Anime Expo, I end up on 20 new PR contact lists. It's fantastic. And also, of course, you want to network with other outlets. Maybe you don't want to do have your own media outlet. You want to work for IGN or Anime News Network. You get to meet a lot of other news outlets at these events, and it's a great place to network. Now, budget. Part that no one wants to talk about. Remember that your finances are going to be very limited, so you want to plan accordingly. You don't want to spend your money on things you don't absolutely need or you're never going to use. You want to be as resourceful as possible and try to have a plan for each month. So, what's an example of a good investment to make with your limited budget? Convention tickets is one thing. For example, when I first started, I had to buy my tickets to conventions. I had to buy my ticket to Silicon Valley Comic Con 2016, Heroes and Villains Fan Fest 2016, San Francisco City Comic Con 2016. You see the pattern here. Everything happened in 2016. That was enough to get me my first media pass to Kraken Con 2016, one of my favorite cons ever, and that, of course, all that investment buying con tickets paid off. Industry cons, however, is completely different. I actually had to buy a $300 Expo pass, which only gave me access to the Expo floor and maybe a few panels. Of course, the panels were not even worth sitting through. However, it was a good investment because it got me invited to the Augmented World Expo, Oculus Connect 4, the VRDC, and finally, I'm being regularly invited to GDC every year. So that was an investment that really paid off. And I think of course, my crowning achievement for convention coverage, I was able to get media passes to the Consumer Electronics Show 2020. Last time I'm going to go to that, though, however, since I do not like big crowds, and Vegas is obviously not my kind of town. Another good investment, of course, is is getting a custom email. I think sign up for Google Business Suite. I believe it's $12 a month. Comes in very handy. Gives you, like I said, gives you a lot more credibility. And when you become big and people try to pretend to be you, it's a lot easier to spot the fake email. And of course, there's the website service, the website domain, and sometimes if you need freelancers, it's good to have a budget to want to pay someone to write for you once in a while. And this is something I'm actually looking to right now, is trying to get my website registered as a business for tax purposes. So far, I'm just talking to a friend of mine who's a tax attorney, and one thing we've all come to the conclusion so far is don't do it in California. I don't want to pay $800 a year. That's for the franchise fee. Other states do it a lot cheaper or have a very low franchise fee and most likely give you a lot of benefits in return. Of course, there's bad investments you want to avoid. The obvious is don't get yourself a lot of unnecessary software or gear you're not familiar with. You're just going to end up wasting your money if you don't know anything about it and you don't really have the time to learn. Of course, a lot of times you will have to buy your games or movie tickets or comics or whatever it is you want to write about, but make sure don't buy too much. If you have a backlog of Steam games, you know what I'm talking about. And don't do the fake followers, buying 1,000 followers for your Instagram account. They get deleted pretty quickly and it hurts your SEO ranking. Next, most important thing is your reputation. When you gotta protect it at all costs. And what I mean by that is, first of all, don't plagiarize. You're gonna get caught. Don't write fake news. It'll hurt your credibility, and you might get sued if you decide to slander someone. Don't be a creep at cons. In the Bay Area, for example, events like MAGWest, people who volunteer or organize here also work with other cons or know people who host other cons. They talk a lot, and if you have a bad reputation, you could be blacklisted or banned from coming. Best example is there's this Facebook group I'm in. It's like a nerd community, and we had to kick one of them. Recently, there was this big debate as one of the most outspoken members had to be kicked out of the group because they've been blacklisted from a lot of cons in the Denver area for a lot of horrible things they've done. And the admins were able to learn about it because some of the con organizers were in this group as well and told them. So word gets spread if you have a bad reputation, if you're a creeper at cons. So don't do it. This is a very common problem when it comes to reviews, but don't give very low scores just for attention. What I mean by this is, don't be the guy who gave Elden Ring a 0 out of 10. We know you're just doing it for attention. It's gonna really hurt your reputation among your readers and PR firms. Also, don't burn or backstab your sources, because your sources will need to trust you. So if you have a reputation of throwing them under the bus or doing them dirty, they're not going to talk to you. Oh, and this is very true when it comes to networking events at industry cons. Don't go buck wild at the open bar. I mean, I had to happen at GDC this year. I literally had to call a lift for someone who went a little crazy at the open bar. Also, and plagiarism is a major problem. Well, the most common problem is you got new, click farms trying to copy and paste your entire work and post it on their website. However, thankfully Google has a tool that lets you to flag it and have it taken off their search engine. It's still going to be on their website, but if they can't show up on a Google search, they might as well not exist. All right. So I want to talk about some of the myth that comes with starting your own news site or your own geek media outlet. The first myth. It costs nothing. As you have clearly heard, it's not going to be free. Myth number 2: going viral is easy. No, it's not. I mean, going viral is basically winning the lottery of marketing. And if you do go viral, it's not always going to be positive sometimes. Or it's easy to go viral for something negative. And of course, the myth number 3 is anyone can do it. Well, I mean, first you need to be knowledgeable about what you're talking about. And then you also need to have at least some marketing skills to promote yourself. And also, you need to also have it's not like anyone can just easily do it. Hold on, sorry. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Let me start over. I know everyone says they can do this, it's easy, but the truth is it's not really that hard. It's not really that easy at all. First of all, you need to actually love what you're doing. You also need to have a solid understanding of what you're talking about. Then you need to have the discipline to be committed to this, because at first you're not going to be rewarded for your dedication. You're going to need to put in the hours, the effort, the grind, just to grow. And also, like I said, that knowledgeable part is very important, because a lot of the popular big commentators, they still have some sort of background on what they're talking about. Like, for example, Stephanie Sterling actually has a background in journalism. Used to write for Destructoid, like in the 2010s. The host of Mother's Basement actually studied game design and has a background in journalism. And Doug Walker from the Nostalgia Critic actually studied film and communication before starting his YouTube channel. So, finally, these are some final thoughts I want to give out. I've done 8-Bit Digit was not my first attempt at making a video game news site. I had 2 previous attempts with partners that failed, mostly because I'm doing all the work and they are just giving me all the excuses for why they can't do their work. But when I went it alone, and it worked out to my knowledge, because I wasn't worried about having to carry someone else's work. It was all on me. Be realistic. Like I said, know your strengths, know your weaknesses, know your limitations, and work with that. Set goals. Just say, where do you want to be when you start this? Where do you want to be around the same time next year, and how do you plan to get there? You also want to learn from professionals. Learn as much as you can, because they've probably been where you have at some point. So they have some advice. They have advice to give on how to help you move along in your career. All right, and that is it. Any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
You need me at the microphone, or can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
As much time as you spend on your platform, how much time do you spend monitoring other platforms to see what they're doing, or whether you need to catch up, or whether you need to, compare yourself to others?
Yes.
How do you balance?
Of course, I do read other platforms like Kotaku, IGN, Shack News. niche gamer, and I don't really focus at this point on how I should be imitating them, but what I do is mostly look to them for what else is going on in the industry, in the news, and also read their opinions on what they think of what's going on in the industry. So it's not so much I'm now looking at them for content or design, but more like I just want to read other people's stuff. And of course, sometimes you'll see a game that comes out that gets your attention. So I want to always go back and check, hey, did I get an email from these guys? No, I better reach out to their PR people as well.
You were trying to explain the distinction between a video game journalist and just another influencer on YouTube. What are the distinctions, say, between Adam Sessler and Jose Vargas of Angry Joe? Are they both?
Adam Sessler, I think he was he was for on G4, right? Yeah, I think I would more describe him as more of a media personality or a commentator. I never watched G4 back in the days, and when it finally came to cable, it was just reality TV, so I was not familiar. Angry Joe, I've seen some of his reviews, so I would call him more of a critic and commentator. But overall, I have to say the difference is content creators mostly just make videos for fun, like D-Pity. He's someone I would point out as a great example as a content creator. Angry Joe depends on his videos. He could be a content creator or a commentator or a critic. The Angry Video Game Nerd. He's more of a commentator. He's more of a commentator. Looking back at classic games, but his other videos would fall more under the category of content creation.
Okay.
Do you think it's possible for the lines between some of those boundaries, like say between commentator and content creator, do you think it's possible to blur those lines?
Yes, because sometimes they'll be bouncing back and forth between those two, as demonstrated with the Angry Video Game Nerd and Angry Joe, whereas Young Yi, he definitely stays more in the commentator line. Any more questions?
I probably have several. I haven't formulated them yet.
That's okay. Let's see what time it is.
Where else can we find your work?
Oh yeah, you can find it on my website, 8BitDigi. Let me just. If you want to come here, I got my Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Oh, it's literally all 8BitDigi.
Yeah.
Is there a degree of prominence you're hoping to achieve? I mean, are you as popular as you're comfortable being, or would you prefer to be?
Right now, I wouldn't mind being more popular, getting more viewers, but I'm also at that point where I'm happy at where I am, since I do get game reviews. I go to conferences without getting media badges to conferences, so I'm pretty happy.
Thank you.
No problem. Cool. Any more questions?
That's it for me.
All right. Cool. Well, thank you for coming. And if you're going to be crazy enough to stay till 1:30, I'll be hosting the panel Convention Stories.
Cool.
It comes as a surprise. I just misread the email. I thought it was going to be 1:30 p.m. Tomorrow, it's 1:30 a.m. tomorrow morning. So, goodbye sleep.
Is this your first time at MAGWest?
Second time.
Okay.
What about you?
My second. My first was pre-COVID.
Same here.